Hello everyone and welcome back. Once again we're in a completely different location because I am now in Austria. So I'm filming a sort of yarn stash video, but just of the yarn that I have in Austria currently. So I'm still waiting for my shipment to arrive from York, which has all my yarn in it, which I'm never going to share on the internet. But here I thought I'd just share the things that I've currently got in Austria. And a lot of it is quite new because I was in Austria at the end of August, beginning of September for a couple of weeks before I finished my PhD thesis. And so I kind of acquired a lot of yarn there because I knew I didn't have to take it back to the UK. So I could just stay here. So there's quite a bit more than I normally have. But so I thought I'd take you through and show you what I've got and what I've kind of got planned for most of it, because most of it was bought with a project in mind. And at the end I thought I'd include a little bit that I also did for my German video, because a lot of people had asked there about why am I moving to Germany, what am I doing there, what's happening, what's going on, why have you left the UK? So I thought I'd also kind of include that at the end, but we're going to have yarn content first and, you know, knitting content, and then for anyone who's interested, you can hear the stuff at the end. So, let's get started. Here, I've currently got my yarn, like, out on display because I've never really had a chance to do that before because I haven't had the space. And there's also, you know, the worry about moths, the dreaded word. But because it's quite cold in this room, so this is my childhood bedroom, it looks completely different to how it did when I grew up. But I just thought it should be okay. It does get sunlight from the window, though it's currently afternoon and it's very grey and very dark, and I've got artificial lighting. Not my usual lighting setup, so the colours aren't probably as good as they normally are, but I'm hoping it'll be enough since I'm just showing off some beautiful yarn. Should be okay. But yes, it gets natural light. I've tried not to, like, stack it too much and pack it in, and really make sure there's air in between and light gets in, and because there's not that much, I actually go through it and check it every now and then anyway, and the movement should prevent anything as well. Plus I've also got like little traps and pieces of paper that smell because moths don't like smells and things like that, so I'm doing whatever I can to protect it, but I like having my yarn on display. So we'll get started with the first shelf, which is mainly things that I've brought with me from the UK. I'm going to start with the project I was meant to do as soon as my shipment had left, and that I was meant to do until my shipment arrived here. And then, well, I had too much yarn with me, and so I've been knitting other things instead. I've got that one next to me because it's really hard to kind of get back in. So obviously I brought a lot of Fiber Fox yarn with me. First thing, I packed the advent calendar. Speaking of advent calendars, thank you for everyone who entered the giveaway, both on Instagram and on YouTube. It was amazing to see how many of you were excited to win. I'm sorry that I couldn't give you all one. The yarn that JOJI got me as a thank you for helping out at Yarndale, so sort of like payment, but I don't like to think of it as payment because I really enjoyed my time and would totally do it again, is I've got these 5 strands of mohair and 1 skein of a merino yak in this beautiful brown colour called walnut. And with this, the plan is that I'm going to make an overthrow shawl by LOCATELLI from Interpretations Volume 7, I believe. So I've got copper penny, pumpkin spice, honey. Oh, honey's my favourite. This is walnut, foxtail, and wood elf. And so I'll have a photo included of what the shawl's going to look like, but I think it's going to be beautiful. But that's the project I set aside to be my one project that I work on after my shipment had left. But then I was knitting the spice cardigan for a friend of mine. I was like, well, I have to finish that. And then I was working on other things for friends. And then I was just like, I never started this one. But I'm hoping that will be soon. Speaking of friends, I've been knitting a FJER cardigan by Fiber Tales using this yarn here, which I'm actually going to pronounce this time. I've been refusing to do it because French is hard. It's the Petit Lambswool by Biches. in the like dark burgundy grey. I've got 6 skeins up here. I'm currently using the first one on the back piece, which I've been working on a bit. It's not the easiest thing to just work on with the kind of how the pattern, just what the pattern is. But I'm trying to just make a bit of progress every now and then. So that I also brought with me from the UK. Then we've got more fibre fox that I brought with me from the UK. 2 skeins of Merryweather on merino sock and 1 skein of Briar Rose on fluff because I want to make a birds of a feather shawl. I've had this yarn, I think, since last year summer, and I really just want to get started on it because I think it's really cool with the Sleeping Beauty collection, which is where Merryweather is from, and Briar Rose is one of the kind of standard colours that JOJI's been dyeing for a while now. Because I'm a fan in Sleeping Beauty of the blue dress, not the pink dress. So I thought by making Merryweather the main colour of Birds of a Feather and the fluffy bit Briar Rose in the pink colour, it's kind of expressing that and going like, no, the blue dress, not the pink dress. So hopefully that will be done soon. You're going to see soon, there's quite a bit of shawls, quite a few shawls I've got planned. I've also got a skein of Fairy Godmothers by the Fibre Fox, and I don't know if I bought this with a plan in mind. I think I literally was like, I can always do socks, it's so cute. But I'm planning on doing the school run mittens for a friend of mine for Christmas, and there'll be plenty of yarn left to still do socks, make my own pair of mittens, maybe even something else. So that's that. Then we also have the last thing I brought with me from the UK. Yes, it is the last one. A skein of the Croft DK, right? This is, yeah, Croft DK in the colour Norby. It's a bit battered, which I brought with me in case I needed it for the Spice cardigan, which I will talk about in just a little bit. And there'll also be a podcast episode coming soon. I just need to actually, make the time to film. And then I've got 5 skeins of yarn up here, which are all from Woolen Twine. Woolen Twine? Still don't know how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry. Oh yeah, there you go. This is one of the things I was talking about. Stanky things for moths. I've got 4 skeins of her BFL Massum DK in the colour Olive and Sage. I got it right. And with this, I wanted it a shawl by ANDREA. Picture included because I don't remember the name. But it's got, I don't know if it's brioche or not, but it's got this kind of beautiful sort of potentially colour work, but you need 2 colours, and I thought these greens would play really nicely together in that. And I love her BFL Massum DK base. She also does a 4-ply now, which I would love to use for a woolen honey sweater, but is a bit pricey. So that will be a dream project for a long time. But so, like I said, another shawl. But I used this yarn in the caramel colour for the Humleby shawl and loved working on it. I think that's part of the reason why I enjoyed knitting that and knitted it so quickly, because I did it in about 3 days. Because the yarn is so beautiful. It's non-superwash. And if you're not the biggest fan of rustic yarn, it's probably one of the more softer ones, in my opinion. Compared to a merino, nearly everything is going to feel scratchy, except cashmere. But it's one of the softer, nicer, non-superwash, non-merino blends. Then I bought a sock set at the same time because I couldn't resist, it's so pretty. This is called Gwen. And just a standard sock yarn, so fingering weight yarn, and it's her Corriedale base. So I was really intrigued. I love working with Corriedale, and I wanted to know how these socks were kind of going to hold up if I knit a pair, because it's got a relatively high twist. So while it has no nylon, it's 100% Corriedale. It will be interesting to see, will it last and wear okay because of the kind of higher twist. Comes with a 20-gram mini, which I always think is quite a good thing for non-nylon socks, or socks with absolutely no kind of plastic or reinforcement. in it, because if socks typically wear for most people on the heel or on the toe. Some people also actually have it at the base of like the foot, which is inconvenient. But if it is the heel or the toe and you've done it in a contrast colour, you can just switch that out when you need to. And the main sock will kind of last. Unless you're one of those unfortunate people who wears socks at the bottom of the foot. I have never worn through a pair of knitted socks. But I don't know if I have any non-nylon socks yet. So that's the first shelf. And I'm not going to put it back now. I did that in my German video and was just like packing while talking. And I was like, what am I doing? Next shelf. We have got some Sandnes Garn. This is the alpaca silk. 70% baby alpaca, 30% silk. So these are 50-gram balls. And I've got in this gorgeous green colour. And this is some of the yarn I bought in Austria from Laniato in Vienna. It's a beautiful knitting shop. You can follow them on Instagram and look at their website. It's just amazing. And I went in there in September to look at some yarn and saw this and did wonder whether it would look good as a ranunculus. Now, alpaca isn't going to be the best for lace necessarily because of how drapey it can be, which can kind of hide the lace because it hasn't got the greatest stitch definition, but I thought it would be quite interesting to see. So I know you can get, out of 400 meters, you can get a short sleeved ranunculus out. So because I've got 600 meters, I was like, I could potentially, you know, either make the sleeves longer or like I normally have to do, make the body longer. Otherwise it's severely cropped for me. But even if that doesn't work out, if I do the kind of swatch and go, ugh, I don't like how drapey it is, 150 grams will be enough to either do another kind of like singlet or something, or with like a more open gauge, or I can always do some kind of a small kind of shawl or something. These will get used because they're beautiful. I've got a Zauberball, but a 50-gram one. They come in mini sizes.
It comes in paints?
And it's just these beautiful autumnal colours. Also something I bought in September in Austria. Most of this yarn I did. I'll talk about these ones next. This is by Retrosaria. It's Vovó, which I think is a sport weight yarn. It's 100% Portuguese wool. 50 grams is 143 meters. And with this, the green's my main colour because you can hopefully see I've got quite a few skeins back there of the green. And my main colour for, I want to make a Sparky sweater. Sparky, yeah. By Andrea Mowry. I have been obsessed with Andrea Mowry. I don't know why, but I want to knit all her patterns. So what I'm hoping of doing, because it's only meant to be 2 colours, but she uses spin cycle yarn most of the time, so it alternates and like changes colours throughout. The green will be my main. I'm going to start with this kind of yellowy colour, transition to the orange, and then finally to this red colour. And then I think that will just look really beautiful and autumnal. And while it would look amazing, even just in one colour, I thought with 3 different colours going through it, I was like, that'd be nice. Because the Spice cardigan is part of the family. That's also where the Sparky comes from. And the Spice cardigan I obviously only did in 2 colours, if you've seen my videos. And it turned out beautifully. Turning out beautifully. Giving spoilers there. But I don't know, I was in the shop and I was like, I'm just really feeling doing it as a bit of like a gradient sort of. I've then got 2 skeins of this Noro yarn, which is, I believe, a DK, 50 grams, 125 meters. It's 40% cotton, 30% silk, and 30% viscose. And I just think the colour is absolutely stunning. I've got 100 grams of it. I have swatched with one of them already. You can see it kind of wound up there. To try and figure out what I want to do with it. But it's kind of hard because with cotton and silk, I typically would want to do like a summery top. I do not have enough yarn for that. Then I was like, well, mittens is weird because it's cotton. And then I was like, okay, well, what about some kind of like a beanie or a hat of some kind for like springtime. But I just haven't found the perfect pattern for it yet, so I'm just kind of holding on to these. But I bought that in Austria as well. Same thing with these. Because I saw them in a shop in Salzburg and was just like, I've always wanted to work with it. And she had only 2 skeins in that colour anyway. There was a grey where she had plenty more for like a sweater. And I was like, no, it's too expensive to do that. Let's get 100 grams to be safe. I don't want to do socks with them because I think that's just a waste. But I was like, something will happen with them. And then the last 2 on this shelf are both Rico Design yarn that I also bought here in Austria. I've got 2 balls of the Lazy Hazy Summer Cotton. Oh, that reminds me, if any of you are Gilmore Girls fans, watch Gilmore Girls, 2nd season. 2nd season, 3rd season. Lazy, Hazy, Crazy Days of Summer, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And I thought these colours were absolutely beautiful. It's a DK weight. It does have acrylic in it. 46% acrylic. And the rest is pretty much cotton. I'm not a fan of acrylic. I think I've said it before. I do understand why it exists, why some people buy it. I don't judge people on it. The only thing I kind of say is I can understand it from a point of view for kids, for example. This is part of the reason why I kind of bought this as well, because I thought that would be a potentially really good thing for like baby knits. It would be quite cute colours. And if, you know, from a budget point of view, acrylic is amazing. But it breaks my heart when I see people who have quite a large budget and continue to kind of work with acrylic because the environmental impact just is not great. And I know some people also have allergies and things like that. But it's just, there are some reasons why I can understand people use acrylic. But there are some where I'm like, I'm not okay with that, but it's their choice. I'm not going to go around yelling at people. It's just, I personally don't really like acrylic, but sometimes I will buy it specifically for baby knits. Then also from Rico Design, we've got this Cashmeri luxury socks yarn, which is just a standard sock yarn. But I really liked it because it's got this kind of grey, light grey colour, and then it just has these stripes of like a darker grey and a like mauvey pink. And I think it's not going to work up like a striping sock because there's not a lot of these stripes. I think it will just be random bits where there's just like a couple of stitches in that colour. And I think that will look really cool. And it has got a bit of cashmere in it, which is just nice. So that's just sock yarn that will be used at some point. I never really stress too much about buying sock yarn because it's something where I'm like, if I don't know what to make, socks are just great, and I just make vanilla socks. Speaking of socks, also in September I ordered from Rauwerk. They're based in Munich, it's Bavaria, in Germany. And I've got 2 skeins of this dark colour called Obsidian, and this light blue is called Vergiss mich nicht. Translated, it would be like Alp Forget Me Not. And with these, I want to make the Isabel Kramer socks from 52 Weeks of Shawls. Socks! 52 weeks of socks! My brain! And you need 2 skeins of this colour and 1 skein of this. And she used Rauwerk for those socks. A lot of the kind of base colours, so these ones were sold out. So the colour I wanted, they didn't have anymore. But I thought Obsidian was quite nice. And with this pop of blue, I think it's going to look really nice as well. So, socks. Then I've just got like Ricorumi stuff. And from Gründel, I've also got some like cotton for amigurumi. I've got some eyes and things. So that's just a small little collection of amigurumi in case I feel inclined. I don't think I have my 2.5mm crochet hook with me though, so can't really do that. Unless I go buy one, but like I said, Austria's about to go into a lockdown. I won't be going outside and buying things. Then all of these here, there's quite a few of them. are by the same company that do the Zauberball. I think they're called Schoppel. You'd think I would have looked this up. Schoppel. And this is 90% virgin wool, 10% hemp, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to make a sweater by Jennifer Steingast, Knit Love Wool on Instagram, who's back. She's been really unwell, but she's finally back, and I'm so glad she's back, and I'm glad she's doing okay. But the sweater that I'm going to do, this is going to be my main colour, and these two will be my contrast colours. So I'll have a photo included. But I thought it was a pretty good... Well, one, I'm interested in the yarn itself. The fact that it's got hemp. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's gonna knit up like. What does it feel like? How does it wear? It doesn't feel the softest, but I think this might not be superwash yarn. Yeah, it says do not put in the washing machine. So I think it's non-superwash. It is merino. Okay, it's merino wool. But with it being non-superwash, and who knows what kind of merino it is. It's not the softest, but it's not too bad. I'm not that sensitive with it anyway. But yeah, so that will be a jumper right there. I really want to start these socks soon, but I've got so many projects on the go right now. I think I already said a podcast video will be coming soon. And then comes kind of my sort of sock yarn area. These are just 2 skeins of your kind of standard sock yarn, except they're 6-ply, so it's more like a DK weight. 100 grams of both of them, and these are just really nice if when I'm like, I don't know what to knit, but I want to knit something and I want something new. I just knit with that yarn and make a pair of vanilla socks. And then this beautiful one by Lana Grossa. My mum's made a pair of socks, I'm pretty sure, in this colour, and they worked up beautifully. It's a really stunning colour. And then the last thing on the shelf is 4 skeins of yarn by Katja. I think they're Italian. Pardon me, I've been talking too much today. These are mainly acrylic, if I'm not mistaken. 80% acrylic, 20% wool. And there's a reason I have these. I don't really know what to do with them anymore, because the reason I need them, I didn't use them. But I'll tell you the story. So, at the end of 2019, I came to Austria for Christmas. My family was going to be here, my brother and his family and my parents, and we were actually going to be able to get together, and I'm so glad we did, because obviously then 2020 hit. And before I'd left the UK, someone in America, I think it was looking for test knitters for, like, I think it was a hat, maybe it was a cowl, I can't remember, and it used like Crazy Sexy Wool by Wool and the Gang, so really like super bulky yarn. And I'd applied but hadn't heard anything, and then wasn't until I got to the airport of Manchester, because that's where I always flew from to get to Vienna. I was at Manchester Airport outside my gate waiting for boarding to begin when I got the notification, oh yeah, I'd love to have you test knit, and immediately messaged my mum going, I didn't bring any yarn for this. Do you think we'll be able to find some? And it was a struggle. No shops kind of stocked it. Getting Wool and the Gang in Austria is complicated. I don't know if I knew about We Are Knitters, or whether it was just, ordering like 1 skein of their wool yarn was just stupid because of the shipping and everything. I think it was also how long it was going to take or something. Like I needed it right then and there when I arrived. So we'd looked everywhere in shops, we'd looked online, couldn't find anything. Except like paying an absolute fortune for 1 skein of yarn. And so Mum posted on a Facebook group being all like, does anyone know where we can get this kind of yarn? And a woman responded who said, oh, well, I've got some stuff. You could come over to mine, have a look at the yarn I've got, and then, just buy whatever you want. So we went to this woman's house. It was incredible how much yarn there was. There were just containers everywhere. There was a full room you could walk in and just look at all the yarn. And she literally said, just take your time, look around. put aside anything you want. She gave us a rough idea of price, and it was really affordable. She really wasn't charging a lot. And though Mum and I told her that, and she said, wow, most people complain that she charges too much, and here we are going, you sure you don't want more money for your yarn? But so I picked up these. They're bulky, not super bulky like the yarn from Wool and the Gang We Are Knitters. But that's why I have 2 of each, to be able to then hold a double. But then I also got some other yarn that maybe would have worked. And I just kind of picked up a few bits and was like, okay, once I do a gauge swatch, something surely will work out. And I ended up using the other yarn. And then now still have this. And I'm not too sure what to do with it. Because like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of acrylic. So I don't want to keep whatever I make with it. So... And the bulky yarn, I'm like, it's not the best for making baby knits unless I make like a blanket. Yarn on the run. Unless I make like a blanket, and I'm just not sure. So it's currently here, it exists, it's sitting there, and will be used one day. And then the last shelf, other than 2 skeins that didn't fit up here, which I'll show now. We've got 1 skein of another Lana Grossa yarn, which is, what is it, virgin wool, polyamide, and the viscose is made out of soy. How cool is that? So I also just thought the colours were beautiful. So you can kind of see in the picture how it's meant to work up. Anyway, so bought it because I was like, ooh, socks. And then this is the same company brand again as Zauberball. And it's like this tweedy blue yarn. Once again, I was like, it feels so beautiful and nice. Sock yarn. I will make socks. But then I've been looking at the Harlow hat by Andrea Mowry. Told you the obsession was real. And did start thinking, well, I could maybe use these 2 colours. And use this as my contrast colour so it sits in the background and you just get these subtle kind of colour changes. Because... obviously the design is intended for like 60 stitches, and with the hat I'm going to have a lot more. So then I was like, well, you know, maybe I could just see how that works up, but I've got enough projects on the go, I don't need to do this now. But so I've also got these 2, and the other thing that's like full things of yarn is I've got a couple of these, which is 100% cotton from my grandma. So she had these at home and was like, well, if you're really into knitting, you can just have these. No idea what I'm going to do with them. I think it's like a sort of sport weight, 50 grams, 170 meters, so it's a bit weird. There are like specific uses for this type of cotton, but I'm like, could I get away with doing something else? Don't know. But I've got quite a few of these. Plus it's also just cool to have something from my grandma and then make something with it. And the other thing that's down here is some of my yarn scraps, because I don't have a lot here because, well, projects I finish, I always take the yarn scraps back to York. The first thing is I've got some just cotton yarn, which I think I got in Oslo, Denmark. Might have been Copenhagen. No, I don't think it was Copenhagen. I think it was Oslo, or at least it was somewhere in Norway. And it was like a rainbow skein of cotton yarn. So there's still some like blue inside here as well, and the purple. So I've got that. This Lana Grossa yarn my mum used, and I stole this extra bit off her because I love this colour and I'm desperate to try and find more of it because I'd love a jumper knitted out of that. I've got these 2 leftover skeins where I made like a headband in 2019, and just have this yarn left over now, so not sure what to do with that. And I've also got this, which is a skein from Toft, and it was one of the first things I'd ever crocheted. So I'd bought a kit, I think it was from Paper Chase, and it was for the Emma Bunny, and I crocheted that for my niece. And this is just the main colour of the yarn that I still have left over. So it's a DK weight, and it's decent yarn. I've also still got a lot of the stuffing in here as well, which is just hanging out down there as well. So I'm like, don't know what to do with that. And then the last thing, which I sort of already spoiled earlier, and I will talk about in my podcast episode, I finished the Spice cardigan. This is the yarn I've got left. So I'd mentioned the skein that I've got here, that I left over. But in the actual shipment, I think I've got another one of the green and 1 or 2 more of the blue. So I've got quite a bit of yarn left. But even just with what I've got here, these 2 blues and that blue up there with this green, there's a hat pattern that I found recently. Picture will be inserted. Which I thought this could work quite nicely for. And I also thought with the design itself, like the blue is the like top sky colour and this more is like the earthy colour. So we'll see. I've been meaning to start it for quite a while, but I'm trying to finish some things for other people and not get too obsessed with using up my scraps. I've just been going through that, like, when I organised all of this, because like I said, I normally don't have my yarn out. I kind of gathered all my scraps together that I did have here and was just really keen on just using it up and finishing up that yarn and being done with it and not having to have so much stuff flying around and being able to use the socks or the headbands or whatever I was making with it. So I wanted to start that hat like immediately, and then was like, no, finish the other things you've got for people. So that's my current yarn situation here in Austria. Hopefully my shipment will arrive next week, which means I then need to figure out where all that stuff is gonna go. Because my plan isn't to take all of it over to Germany, just because my contract is for a year. But in that time I'm hoping to apply for more funding. It just depends if it works out or not. So Austria, the apartment in Austria is kind of always like my hub and my base. So I like to keep all my things here. Yes, so that's all the yarny content. I will do a podcast episode very soon, because while I can't do like the normal follow-on from this is what I showed you last time, here it is now, because of the moving situation, there are some things I can show off that I've been obviously working on, but also some things that I finished. So, anyone who's interested to hear about my current living situation, the life update section, if you will, that's about to begin. So for anyone else who's not interested, thank you for watching. So, like I said, I'm currently in Austria, where I'm originally from, and I left the UK so that I could start working in Germany. I have started that job. I'm just working remotely currently while I wait for my stuff to arrive from York, and while I try and find some accommodation to once again use that as a hub to find a proper place to live in while I'm in Germany. So I'm going to be doing, or what I am currently doing, is a postdoc. In case any of you don't know what that is, because I know plenty of people don't. I didn't when I started, well, when I was younger, and even when I started uni I didn't know. But the way that it works, in the kind of academic environment, is you go to university and you do your bachelor's, which is an undergraduate degree. Typically takes 3 to 4 years. I did mine in 3 years. I did that in New Zealand. And then after that, I did a postgraduate degree. Because obviously you've graduated with your bachelor's. So then post-graduation, you do another degree. And I did a master's, which I did in 2 years, which was much more research-based than an undergraduate is. I know some people do some research in undergraduate, like it is university dependent, country dependent, but I had done nothing before my master's. Then I left New Zealand because I wanted to be closer to Europe and my family, and just the feeling in New Zealand, it just wasn't right for me anymore. I was there for 12 years. I was like, we're done with this. And got a PhD position in York, moved there, did my PhD, and recently finished that up. I talked a little bit about the PhD defence, which is known as a viva in the UK. And I'm now just kind of doing my corrections while also starting this postdoc. And so with the PhD, that is the last degree that you can do. It's the highest level you can do. You can't do any more degrees after that. in that same subject and field. And what you do after that is, there's many reasons why you would do a PhD, but quite often it's because you want to become an academic. So you want to teach at university and do research at university. So to be able to go into that kind of direction and that route, you would then, after your PhD, do a postdoc for a certain number of years. And what that is in your PhD, you're studying, you're learning, while also gaining independence and doing research. As a postdoc, you're then kind of continuing that independence, and you're kind of, instead of working for an academic, you're really working with them, which is the sort of relationship you start to develop towards the end of your PhD typically, where you know so much more than the academic you're working for, but technically speaking, you're still working for them and under them. So a postdoc is currently what I'm doing, where I'll be doing some research. And like I said, I've got funding for a year, but in that year I'm hoping to apply for more funding so I can stay on, and that will be at the TU Darmstadt in Germany. So that's why I'm moving over there. And the way that it ended up happening was I'd applied for a couple of postdocs in the UK, but I did that at the beginning of the year really, just to kind of get started and get a feel for postdocs and at the application process, and had 2 interviews where they wanted me to start the job immediately and I couldn't because I was still doing my PhD. So what then ended up happening is one of them was in collaboration with TU Darmstadt, the university I'm going to be working at. And so it kind of gave me those connections, and then kind of filled in an application to get some funding to be able to do a postdoc there, and ended up happening, finished my PhD, and now I'm slowly making my way over to Germany to live there. And then after you do a couple of postdocs and things, you would then kind of start to look for either a lectureship, or you maybe would do a fellowship where it's really much more about the research, whereas a lectureship is, you also include quite a bit of teaching in your workload. Yeah, so that kind of explains why I'm moving to Germany. The whole reason for kind of also, leaving the UK and moving to Germany. One thing is the last time I properly lived in Austria was probably when I was 7 or 8 years old. I've never worked here. I've never actually, studied here. I've been a kid at school, but that was so long ago. So I don't really have my own experience as an adult of what it's like to live here. And I know Germany and Austria aren't exactly the same, but there are a lot of similarities. So I just want to see what it's like. It's just a new experience. It's also just the way that things are done in Germany and Austria is just more kind of what I'm used to. Because that is what I grew up around, and I really miss that. Really miss that in New Zealand, but even miss that quite a bit in the UK. So it'll be interesting to see, do I actually get along with that, mesh with that kind of work environment, living environment, or is it not actually suited for me? I just want to experience that. The whole situation with Brexit didn't really influence my decision too much. As in, I didn't go, oh, well, because of Brexit, I want to leave. Because I've got a PhD now, it makes kind of living in any country quite easy, because I'm considered highly educated. So as long as I find any sort of job, which is, that can be kind of the tricky part with research, but anyway. So if I did want to go back to the UK, I now also don't have an issue because I've lived in the UK for 5 years, so I've got settled status there, which means I can be away for 5 years before I lose that, and I can just move back and start working if I find a job. So the Brexit thing didn't really have much influence, other than because of how I speak English, because of the fact that most people assume I'm from Australia or New Zealand. Sometimes people do kind of go, oh, maybe she, is from the UK, but just has parents who are from Australia or New Zealand. I kind of pass. So people never really treat me in any sort of awful way because of being a foreigner or anything, because they just kind of assume that I belong there. So that wasn't really that ever an issue either. But there is just this kind of sense that even though, like, in York, a lot of people didn't vote for Brexit, and there's, you know, plenty of people in the UK who didn't vote for Brexit, there is just this feeling of knowing you're not as welcome as you used to be. And, you know, a lot of that's probably in my head and other people's heads, but it's just always there. Because you hear about Brexit all the time because of the issues it's causing over in the UK. So there was an attitude shift and a dynamic shift, and the feeling of living in the UK just wasn't the same. One reason that did kind of influence my decision was my experience over the last 2 years at York. So the first kind of 2 years of my PhD were amazing. The opportunities that I had, the people that I met, the work that I did, just everything was just good. There were issues. There's always going to be issues in any sort of university and workplace, but it was manageable. I could, you know, do something if something wasn't handled properly, if there were any sort of issues. But with the pandemic, it suddenly started to change, and I just felt like my problems and issues were ignored, other people's issues were being ignored, and the pandemic was just being used as an excuse now. I'm not going to go into the details of any of this because, well, I might still at some point want to go back, and I don't want to potentially jeopardize my career by posting something on the internet, which is a sad world we live in, that you can't really speak openly about certain things without, you know, potential consequences, because all I'd want to do is just share what actually happened, and that be it. My, you know, what happened to me, my truth is out there, but it could have consequences that I don't like. So I'm just going to say it wasn't the best experience throughout the pandemic, and it did have an influence on why I left. Because some of the things I didn't like in York, when I had my kind of interview with Darmstadt, I asked a couple of questions regarding how things have been handled there, and they just ticked all the boxes. So both from an equality and a diversity point, they just, in my opinion, did a lot better in Darmstadt. Which is sad, because that's one of the reasons why I chose York in the first place. And like I said, the first 2 years was amazing. But while I understand the pandemic shook things up for everyone, and shook up everything, it's something like that really starts to point out where the cracks and the flaws in the system are, and within the university, and the cracks I saw were not good, really not good. And now they're getting really hard to fix and cover up, because some people do want to just cover them up instead of dealing with them. But yeah, it's a whole thing. But, you know, I'm not saying goodbye to the UK and to York forever. It's just let's try something new, experience new things, and see where it takes me. If I end up coming back, I end up coming back. If I end up, you know, staying in Germany, moving to Austria, moving to a completely different random country afterwards, who knows? I just, you know, I'm happy hopping around if need be. And I'm just going to do the thing that I think is right for me at the time, and is going to make sure that I'm happy. There we go. That's it. That's my little monologue done. So if anyone did kind of wonder about me moving and what was happening, I hope that kind of answers most questions. And like I said many times now, a podcast episode will be coming soon. And I hope you kind of enjoyed seeing my yarn stash. I feel like this is what a normal person should have. Like, this is potentially even a lot. Because I've got, what? 2-3 shawls? Like, enough yarn for 2 or 3 shawls. 2 jumpers. Well, 3 jumpers technically, but that one's like a gift knit. Plenty of socks. Like, I shouldn't have more than this. But I do, because, well, there's also this. And, well, all my yarn from the UK. Anyway. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again for taking part in that giveaway. It was amazing how many people were interested in winning the prize, and I'm sorry you couldn't all win. I wish I had more. And it might be a thing I actually try to do every year now, because now that I know how much people love the idea, I can really make sure that I leave, you know, my yarn scraps, like have some yarn scraps specifically for that, and already have them wound up into 10 gram minis, and keep certain things aside, and, you know, take some time earlier on to kind of just wind some yarn off from yarn I have that I haven't used yet or something, and just, you know, give back a bit. Anyway, planning for next year already. It's unnecessary. But yeah, so hope you enjoyed that. Different setup, but I quite like this. Plus, my favourite vegetable, Mr. Broccoli, is here. And the world map, which I think is very fitting. And I will probably film here again. There'll be 1 or 2 more videos probably from Austria before I'm in Germany. But we shall see. But once again, thank you for watching, and the usual things of, you'll find my Instagram, Ko-Fi, email address, all of that stuff in the description box. Also be great if you enjoy the videos, if you know, subscribe and give it a thumbs up, because then you know when I've released a new video, and it also just means other people, especially the like interaction of comments and thumbs up and things, really helps other people find my videos if they, you know, are interested. But yes, love to know what you think. Do you think this is a lot of yarn? I would actually like to know if anyone made it this far in the video. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Goodbye!